Everybody, don't adjust the dials. Deeper dive. The better looking host. Laffy is away doing FSGA stuff, which I thought was a typo for a lot of people until I realized they renamed themselves. But
yeah, I almost corrected Lofty on the show yesterday because he said FSGA like 7 different times. And I'm just sitting there like, does this idiot not even know what the name of the thing is called that he's talking about?
I didn't know they rebranded either, because I believe it was you and I in a DM that were just like, he's not even getting the letters right. Whoops. We don't have a ton to talk about today on this lovely Deeper Dive show. 4-game slate, smaller than the main from earlier. I saw somebody in chat being like, they should do it the opposite way. I don't think baseball is setting up their schedules for DFS people 6 months in advance. I agree, it would be nicer, but not happening. Let's get the plugs out of the way. Deeper Dive is the promo code, one big word. That one doesn't roll off the tongue like the others for me. If you enter that promo code when signing up at Awesemo to get Awesemo Plus, you can get 50% off your first month with us, any monthly package you choose, including packages that have Fantasy Cruncher. So all you have to do is enter the promo code Deeper Dive. Again, one big word. You can get up to 50% off. This part I know. We are brought to you on the Deeper Dive by Yahoo Sports. I'm going to drop a link into chat right now. This was Emacs Spotlight Hitters and Stacks article for today. If you are perusing this article, you'll find a link directly to Yahoo where you can sign up using the promo code AWESEMO and get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points. Normally, I'm pitching Yahoo in the morning and I'm telling everybody to hustle and get into the no management fee contest, but that thing has been filled for 5 hours. So your best bet is to sign up now, get in some of their other contests tonight, and have yourself ready to go when they release tomorrow's slate so that you can get immediately into the $3 no management fee contest. That's the way to do it. So check out the link in the article. Promo code is AWESEMO. And now Adam and I are going to talk about a 4-game slate with one legitimate high-end pitching option, a second that I think is the best, and some really weird pricing. So I'm ready if you're ready.
Yeah, let's go.
Alrighty. First game up on the docket. The only 7 o'clock start. It's just going to be a weird night. Marlins and Nats. 3.1 run implied total for the Marlins. 4.4 for the Nats. It's Sandy Alcantara going for the Marlins. Steven Strasburg going for the Nats. Strasburg, surprise, surprise, overwhelming chalk on this slate. He is 24% owned on FanDuel, just over 30 on DraftKings, and 63% on Yahoo. Let's just start here with Strasburg. How are you managing him, and do you think he is the best pitching option of the slate?
I do think he's the best pitching option of the slate. I think talent-wise, he's similar to Buehler. You know, he has the number 1 strikeout percentage on the slate, second best K minus BB percentage, second best PCRA, best xFIP. So in terms of talent, it's one of the two. But one of them is facing Miami, and one of them is facing the Rockies in Coors. So I think that's, you know, a pretty big difference. What really will make the difference for me in my lineups, though, is what site I'm playing on. On DraftKings, you have Strasburg at 11.9 and Buehler at 8.9. That's a huge, huge difference, and it's probably too big of a price difference when you consider that they are very similar pitchers in terms of talent level, and it's not like the Rockies are some great offense. They just happen to be in Coors Field. Yeah. But on Yahoo, where, you know, you mentioned Strasburg's projected for 63% ownership, he's $2 less expensive than Buehler. So, like, the only argument you can make for Buehler there is just that he'll be lower owned, and it's a 4-game slate. But you know, in terms of projection and anything else, you know, Strasburg is just miles ahead of Buehler, I think, when he's even cheaper. And then on FanDuel, it's not a huge price difference, only $800 between the two. So on DraftKings, I think that Buehler is, when you factor in the price, a really good play compared to Strasburg. But on Yahoo and FanDuel, it's purely just looking to pivot away for ownership reasons.
I think this is something we can dig into a little bit here since we're certainly going to have some time. Buehler and Strasburg right now in our DraftKings ownership projections, same exact ownership, which surprised me. On FanDuel, Strasburg's at 24%. Buehler is at 8%. That also surprises me. That feels like too big of a gap. On Yahoo, where I said that Strasburg is 63%, Walker Buehler is coming in at 12%. I feel like everything is not what I would have expected. I wouldn't have expected 3-1 Strasburg to Buehler on FanDuel, although that one makes the most sense to me because of cores. I'm surprised to see them be the same on DraftKings just because of that $3,000 gap. And then on Yahoo, I'm baffled that it's a 5-1 ownership split. Like, I would rather have Buehler after I see that ownership, even though I agree that Strasburg is the better play.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the ownership makes sense because Strasburg projects much better than Buehler at pretty much anything I look at. Strasburg is 5+ points ahead of Buehler. So where he's similarly priced, it makes sense that you're getting that huge ownership gap. And where there's the big gap in salary, it still makes sense that they come in around the same ownership because Strasburg does project for so many more points. But it's a spot where I think that it's really important to distinguish between a median projection and range of outcomes because, Buehler's median projection is obviously going to be lower. He's pitching in Coors Field, whereas Strasburg is pitching in Miami against the Marlins. But the reason I kept mentioning that I think they're both very, very similar in talent level is that they both have the same ceiling, basically. And Buehler on DraftKings is available for a much lower salary. And on the other two sites, he's available for much lower ownership. So when you're looking to find ways to be contrarian on a 4-game slate, getting a pitcher that has the same ceiling at lower ownership and or lower salary is pretty appealing.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I think this is the perfect testament to how people feel about pitchers in cores. Because if Walker Buehler can only get to 8% ownership at 9,600 on a 4-game slate, then no one's ever respecting pitching in cores. Like, the fact that he can't even get into double digits and Alex Young can and Griffin Canning can and Tyler Beede can on FanDuel in particular is the explanation of what people think about when it comes to pitching in cores. Because I still think that he's probably the best. Like, I'd rather have Buehler. Not that I don't want Strasburg. Obviously, the floor on Strasburg's game today is probably in the second or third floor of whatever building you're in. Like, for him to fail against... as soon as you put this into the ether, it becomes a thing. But for him to fail here would be a very, very big surprise. Certainly the biggest surprise start he'll have in the entire season.
Right, exactly. And that's where I think there's still an edge in DFS tournaments, especially in a sport like baseball that has so much variance. The median projection is, it's great. Yeah, Strasburg's projected for a lot more points, but when you're just looking at ceiling and 75th or 80th percentile outcomes, Buehler's not that far behind Strasburg. It's just that his floor is so much lower.
Yep. How do you feel about your boy Sandy? 18% ownership on Yahoo, 6 on FanDuel, 16 on DK. Pretty expensive for this slate, all things considered.
Yeah, I don't really see myself getting there all that much, with the caveat that there's 8 pitchers on the slate, so I might get there, but certainly not a priority for me. He's got a pretty difficult matchup against the Nats. Their offense is pretty good. You have Kurt Suzuki in the lineup instead of Yan Gomes, which cuts down on the strikeout percentage. The top 3 guys still very difficult to strike out. Then you get Soto, who's just a really good hitter. Adams, who has plenty of left-handed power. Suzuki's tough to strike out. Robles has made some improvements at the plate, and then Dozier's not the easiest strikeout. So just not a super appealing matchup. It would be one thing if we were getting Alcantara at like 6,500 or something on DraftKings, but at 8,300, I'm not really that interested.
Yeah, I feel the same way. He should not be in that. I don't mind him. He should not be 8,300 on a day like today. It's just...
Yeah, I mean, so you look at the pitchers in that range. You have him at 8,300. You have Griffin Canning at 8,500. And then you have Buehler at 8,900. Yeah. Buehler has a 28.4% strikeout percentage. Canning has a 25% strikeout percentage. Alcantara has a 16.8% strikeout percentage. And then if you want to look at the walk percentages, Alcantara's at 11%. Canning's at 5.7. Buehler's at 3.7. So Buehler has a 24.7% K minus BB percentage. Canning is 19.3. Alcantara is 5.8.
In what world can you look at this and be like, oh, he's $600 cheaper against the Nats. I'm going to go Sandy Alcantara over Walker Buehler.
Right.
And the ownership is only 31 and 16. I'm hoping that, I mean, maybe not hoping. I'm expecting on the first refresh of our ownership as we get closer that gap starts to widen. because I would just rather find $600 more. They're not comparable pitchers in any form. They don't have similar ceilings at all. I don't care if Walker Buehler is pitching on the moon today. It's just weird,
No, I
man.
agree.
It's just weird. I can't wrap my head around that sort of pricing. The fact that he is the third most expensive pitcher on FanDuel is incredible. I don't know what they're doing today. So let's talk bats then. I assume that we're both on the same page that the Marlins are the least interesting team of any team on the slate, as per usual.
Yeah. I mean, yes, but I guess the reason that I kind of hesitate is that Strasburg will have a ton of ownership. So
Sure.
on a 4-game slate, there's appeal just for that reason.
So let's say independent of any sort of like hedging and leveraging the field, the Marlins are the worst offensive option.
Yes.
Okay. How do you feel about the Nats here against Alcantara, especially if he maintains this ownership?
Yeah, I mean, if he's going to get that ownership, then the Nats become pretty appealing. The park obviously is not great, but you're still there's only so many different ways you can go on this slate, and the Nats do offer you some upside at reasonable price tags. Turner and Rendon are obviously expensive. Soto's up there as well, but beyond that, you get pretty appealing price tags on the rest of this team. So you can use them. I think the cheaper guys, as filler in other stacks. You certainly can full stack the Nats too because they're a pretty high upside offense. But the ballpark isn't even really that much of a deterrent here because obviously the slate has cores, but it also has San Francisco, and then you have Los Angeles. So you have two hitter friendly parks and then two extreme pitcher parks. So it's not as big a deal as it would be on a bigger slate.
Yeah, I was surprised. Nats are the fourth most ownership on FanDuel, pretty close to the Diamondbacks and Giants as well. They are fifth on DK. I expect this to change at least. Behind the Rockies, I might add. Is there a bat from the Nats that draws your eye more than anybody else? I'm assuming Soto.
Yeah, I'll say Soto would be my assumption. Alcantara's been fine against both sides of the plate this year. He doesn't give up a lot of power. 116 ISO to lefties, 133 to righties. Strikeout percentage is much lower against lefties than righties. Not that it's high against righties. But yeah, overall, he's not a guy that I love to target unless it's with a full stack and you're just hoping that, he has a bad game, all the way around. But Soto would be the guy that I'd be most interested in.
Okay. If you're stacking up against Steven Strasburg here and you're looking to get some leverage on the field, what are some of the pieces from the Marlins that you're trying to grab first? I don't really see many that stand out as somebody I'm excited about.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Anderson probably just because he's one of the better hitters on the team, just, in terms of talent. JT Riddle's really cheap and one of the only – him and Neil Walker are the only two lefties in the lineup. If the only real struggles Strasburg's had whatsoever this year, he has been a bit lucky in against lefties. He's still been really good, but his expected WOBA is a bit higher than his actual WOBA. So, maybe we see lefties start to do a little bit better. But, it's the Marlins in Miami. There's not a whole lot that you're actually excited about getting to.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at it and find the silver lining of whatever this team is, and there's no silver. It's not even bronze lining.
The highest ISO on the Marlins against right-handed pitching since the start of last season is Neil Walker at 157.
Yeah, the highest one just in general steamer projections is Garrett Cooper at 166. So it's not even like they're not performing to their abilities or anything. It seems like everybody's right where they should be, which is not very good. Do you have anything else here on Marlins and Nats?
Nope.
Okay. We'll head to the Rockies game. We're heading to Coors. 5-run implied total for the Rockies. 6.9 for the Dodgers. 66% chance to win. It's Peter Lambert going for the Rockies. Walker Buehler going for the Dodgers. As I mentioned when we were starting to talk about Strasburg, big Walker Buehler fan for today. 12% ownership on Yahoo, as I mentioned. 8% on FanDuel, 31 on DK, which matches Strasburg. How do you feel about Walker Buehler? Is it giving you any pause being in Coors?
I mean, it's giving me pause in that It's obviously not where I would like him to be,
Yeah.
but the price discount on DraftKings is, I think, more than worth it. Especially when you consider that with there only being 4 games, there's limited ways to get value into your lineup. So it's likely that saving money from Strasburg to Bueller on DraftKings, saving that $3,000, is going to really help you out a lot, since it's not like there's an abundance of really cheap bats that are in good spots, since there's only the 4 games. On the other sites, like I clearly like Strasburg more than Bueller, but I agree with you that the ownership is a little bit out of hand.
Okay. How often do you expect to get to a Strasburg Bueller pairing?
On like DraftKings?
Yeah. I don't think you're going to be rostering Strasburg as a hitter on FanDuel, so.
Well, no, I was thinking Yahoo.
Sure.
Because they're both reasonably priced there.
Do you think it'll be I mean, obviously, it's probably going to come up.
Like, my guess would be 0.
Really? Okay.
I mean, so like how you're spending $21K on pitching, and it's leaving you with the Marlins, the Giants, or maybe the A's as options. So yeah, I guess because of how cheap the A's are, maybe I could see getting some, but I expect that my priority will be more on Coors Field bats than getting Strasburg plus Bueller.
Okay. Something that I kind of want to look into for today, trying to find potentially comparable slates to this, where, at least to me, there are 2 starting pitchers that are very different than the other 6, or than the rest of it, depending on how you feel about Griffin Canning. And since he's a similar price here, I think it kind of serves the same purpose. There's a chance that Walker Bueller and Steven Strasburg become like the essential combination.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know. I haven't looked at it. I don't know. I'm going to throw my projections into Fantasy Cruncher right now to see sort of what that impact is if you lock those 2 guys in. Because it feels like if those 2 guys go according to plan and hit let's say they're like 70th percentile outcomes, that's a lot of points that you have to make up with whoever the hell some of these people are. Alex Young.
Right. So you would basically, if the Dodgers bust, or if Coors in general bust, that could very easily be the case.
You grab these DraftKings projections and we'll see what we end up with. I have no idea at this point what I'm going to see when I lock in these 2 guys at pitcher. I'm sure it'll be craziness. You're not going to be getting a lot of talent. Let's be clear here. You think just a 5-man stack, leave the rest of it naked?
Yeah.
Okay. See what we got. Because I think it's important for construction. If you find out that you can get to more than you think, I think it changes the scope of the slate.
Yeah, no, I agree.
All right, let's just set everybody to 40%. We'll see where we end up. Do you have any interest in Peter Lambert while we're here?
No, outside of the fact that he's like an obvious leverage play because the Dodgers should have a lot of ownership, but his minor league numbers are okay. He's a reasonably high prospect, but nothing special. But his major league numbers so far are just pretty unappealing. Hasn't been very good at missing bats. Has been lit up so far by left-handed hitters. His changeup's been completely ineffective. He's thrown it about 28% of the time to lefties. 377 WOBA, 231 ISO so far. Facing all these Dodgers lefties in Coors, I'm good.
Ooh, Josh makes a good point every once in a blue moon. Makes me feel good. Probably the beers. Okay, so I locked Strasburg and Bueller. I ran 150 lineups, cranked up the randomness, cranked everybody up to 100% exposure, and there's 150. Just 5-man stacks. 81% of those stacks go to the Giants, 18% to Oakland, 1% to the Nats. So, depending on how you feel about Oakland, they are probably the best landing spot for this sort of stack, since rostering the Giants doesn't seem to be like a really fun piece. And if you get to Oakland, so this is the first lineup that comes up as a 5-man Oakland stack. Obviously, Strasburg and Bueller. Olsen, Profar, Semien, Chris Davis, Piscotty. I'm happy with those pieces. Buster Posey and Evan Longoria. If I'm going to have to get two pieces out of San Francisco, I'm not super upset that it's Posey and Longoria. At least those are like human beings on the Giants lineup. And then Adam Eaton as a one-off in the outfield. That's not bad.
Yeah, not the end of the world. So I mean, the thing for me is in my baseline stuff, and I still haven't gone through and adjusted anything because we just started getting lineups. But Bueller isn't that far ahead of guys like Beatty and Canning and the Arizona guy in my projections. So
Alex Young.
Yeah, Alex Young. So I don't know how much of that I'll actually get to.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if it would come up a lot for anybody. Judging based on the ownership, like it clearly wasn't. It's like that top Strasburg Bueller lineup I had at like 98.5 points. My top projected lineup with nothing set is like 106.75. So we'd be dropping like 8 points off of that line. I'd want to have a little bit, but it doesn't seem like a spot where you're going to be able to get to enough of it without making a very, very specific stance on some less than appealing bats. So speaking of bats, how do you feel about the Rockies going up against Bueller?
I like the pricing. Obviously, I have a lot of respect for Bueller, but it's not like he's he still can be inconsistent at times. We've certainly seen some bad starts out of him, although recently he seems to have figured it out. But what really stands out is that, like on DraftKings, Charlie Blackmon's really expensive. Arenado is $5,100, Dahl's $4,900. Everyone else is sub $4,500. So you can stack the Rockies. You could get Strasburg and some decent one-offs. So while it's not a great spot against Bueller, it's still a really high upside spot when you consider that there's two teams playing in Miami. There's two teams playing in San Francisco. There's a good pitcher on the mound for the Angels.
Yeah.
So your offensive spots are really, really limited, and you can get this team in cores and still do whatever you want with the rest of your lineup.
Rockies right now on DraftKings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have the 6th highest ownership, and they are basically barely ahead of the Diamondbacks and Marlins. Like they are just basically an afterthought with 6 lefties, with Blackmon, Murphy, Ryan McMahon, I guess, having enough pop, David Dahl with pop. I feel like they're kind of going, as much as I love Walker Bueller because of his price tag and his talent, I feel like the Rockies are kind of going like under-owned as well. This I can't wrap my head around this entire game.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like on the stacking tool on the stack tool on Awesemo.com, we have the Rockies with a 10.9% chance of being the top scoring stack on DraftKings, 9.4% aggregate ownership. On FanDuel, it's 12% to 7.3%. And then on Yahoo, 11.4 to 10.2. So at least as of right now, projected to be under-owned across the industry, regardless of site.
It makes me feel good to land on that conclusion without looking at it. I try to keep that out of my brain until 6 o'clock so that I sort of make my thought process and then add my information afterwards. So makes me feel good that I'm coming to the same sort of conclusions. What Rockies bats would you be targeting here against Bueller? I assume everybody but Garrett Hampson.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, even that's a $3,300 hitter with low ownership in cores.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, the priority list is more or less the order of the lineup in this case.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. No real changes there. If you want to move Arenado to second over David Dahl, I'm not going to begrudge anybody of that one.
Yeah. No drastic splits for Bueller or anything. 26.5% strikeout percentage against lefties, 30.3 against righties, 222 WOBA to lefties, 266 to righties, but the expected WOBAs are about the same. Just nothing that stands out split wise.
Okay. Now we got to move on to the chalk of the day. The Dodgers, an almost 7 implied total. Peter Lambert on the hill across from them. A sea of lefty power. And the clear chalk bats on every site. 21% aggregate ownership on the update that I have for me right now on DK. 26 and change on FanDuel. Is there any way that you're getting away from the Dodgers here?
No, because for one, I think they're going to be lower owned than they should. Individually, you'll get some high ownership on guys because, obviously it's a team with a 7 implied run total.
Yeah.
They're in the clear best spot on the slate, but they're so expensive that full stacks, I think, will still be under-owned relative to their chances of being the highest on the slate or highest scoring team on the slate because people just love their pitching. People are going to insist on getting to Steven Strasburg regardless of what it costs them in terms of Dodgers bats. So I think that 5-man stacks will probably be lower owned than they really should be.
Yeah, I'm on the same page with you there. They are very clearly the top stack to me. I think they should probably get a little bit more love. Right now on Yahoo, Jock Peterson is projected for 51% ownership. That's a
Yahoo has this, looking at the stacking tool, Yahoo has the smallest disparity between projected ownership and top stack percentage, with about a 5% gap. FanDuel's 8%, DraftKings is like 17%, and I think that is directly tied to Steven Strasburg.
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense, actually. Which Dodgers bats stand out most to you?
Cody Bellinger, obviously, and then Muncy, Peterson, Verdugo, Turner. Matt Beattie doesn't have a ton of power, but obviously a huge park shift, and he's one of the only affordable bats there, along with Austin Barnes.
Yeah, fit in Beattie there at first, slot Muncy in at that second spot, and you're already coming up with a relatively unique Dodgers setup. Beattie only projected for 14% ownership. It's the lowest number on the slate. I have a weird question for you. This just came to me right now. I have no concept of it. If you could roster Walker Buehler as a hitter as part of a Dodger stack, how viable would that be?
Do I have to pay $8,900 for him?
No. He would have like a hitter price. He'd be priced like, I don't know, Jeff Mathis or some other shit guy.
I mean, if he was like 2K, then sure.
Okay.
I'd rather get like
if you had a utility spot, do you think there's ever a scenario where you end up with a pitcher?
Depending on the pitcher, yeah. I mean, like Greinke's a good hitter.
Sure. Okay. I was just thinking about it now. Like, that would probably get unique because he would probably be owned at like 1 or 2%, and you would probably get like a decent construction. I don't know. Also, don't ever do that, DraftKings.
I do wish they would come up with like or offer a separate game format where like hitters or pitcher hitter points count.
Yeah. I wish that baseball would come up with a separate setup where pitchers didn't hit.
So, I'm also there with you.
Yeah, we don't need that any longer. Favorite bat in the entire game?
Bellinger.
Same page. Let's keep it moving. Perfect time for everybody to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. Live before lock coming up after this. Chris Spags, Jake Hari going over these 4 games once again, taking you all the way up until 7:05. Actually, taking you all the way up to 7:10. Hey, Jake and Chris, you might want to start a little bit late. Or I hope you guys have some sort of tricks and party favors and stuff to give out because an hour and 10 minutes feels like a lot here. I feel like I'm missing a plug. What does Lofty usually normally plug in the middle of this?
I don't really listen to Lofty.
That's fair. All right, we'll keep it moving. Giants and Diamondbacks. 4.3 run implied total for the Giants. 4.2 for the Diamondbacks. 51% chance to win for San Francisco. Man, this is going to be really fun to talk about. Tyler Beattie going for the Giants. Alex Young going for the Diamondbacks. I'm going to read these numbers off. Now, these are our projected ownerships, which I expect to be lower than whatever you end up with. 65% Tyler Beattie on Yahoo, 26 on FanDuel, 51 on DK. Do you think you'll end up with more than 100% Beattie today?
I don't think I'll end up with that much. Well, I mean, I'll get plenty of Beattie, but I would expect to be around the field or lower.
Okay. Why so pessimistic after having nearly 100% of him in his last start?
Against this exact same team in a worse park.
With just more teams on the slate.
Yeah, just ownership. Okay. Like I don't have any issues with Beattie, but I talked about it in the deep dive article today that I think it's a really, really interesting spot because with both pitchers in this game, because like we have Beattie, at least as of our last DraftKings ownership projection, as the highest owned pitcher on the slate at 51%. Like he's how people are going to want to get Strasburg in or whatever they're going to do. But he projects at every projection system I've looked at so far today. He projects really well on a point per dollar basis. And Beatty has talent, but he also really struggles to throw strikes. He really struggles to finish guys off because he struggles with his command. And we've seen that happen, over and over again. He has about a 14% walk percentage this year. He's only struck out 21% of hitters. He's clearly a really flawed pitcher in a great park facing a below average offense with a low strikeout rate. So it's just a guy that projects well on a point per dollar basis. But on the other side, you have kind of the exact same pitcher at lower ownership with Alex Young making his major league debut. He has about a 10% walk percentage at AAA, strikeout percentage up above, well above 20%. He started the year as a reliever, but he started each of his last 8 appearances, progressively going deeper in the games, through at least 90 pitches in 2 of his last 3 starts. So fully stretched out, facing a Giants team that is one of the worst offenses in baseball, a below average strikeout rate in a great pitcher's park. I really don't see a reason why, with them being at basically the same price point, why there should be a huge gap in ownership between Beatty and Young.
Yeah, I'm with you. I assume the gap in ownership is because an expectation of innings, maybe, and the fact that nobody knows who Alex Young is and Tyler Beatty's been up.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much that.
So so we have Beatty at 51% on DK. We have Alex Young on 30. Safe scenario, you're trying to flip those numbers?
Or just end up like 50-50.
Okay.
Because of like the priority that I put on bats, I think there's a good chance that I just end up overweight overall on cheap pitching. But I don't think that I want it to be a situation where I go like over the field on Tyler Beatty and then like match Young.
Okay. How does that make you feel about Diamondbacks bats, since they aren't very good in general?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because they're not cheap either. Mm-hmm. They're in San Francisco, which really limits your home run upside. The flip side is that it's a 4-game slate, so I think you agree that ownership becomes even more important, and leveraging against it is even more valuable, kind of regardless of spots. I mean, the bigger the slate gets, the pickier you can be. But on slates like this, where it's really obvious where ownership's going to go, you're just making money over the course of a year if you're just willing to take the opposite side, kind of no matter what it is. Some like earlier this year, it was taking bats against Castillo because he was going to be like 60% owned. That's not a spot that you feel good about, but it's just a spot where it's going to come through often enough to pay off. And that's the same thing here. Beatty's got pretty decent stuff, but clearly has issues as well. And the Diamondbacks do at least have some power. Jake Lamb's back in the lineup, which shouldn't hurt. 2 through 6 in their projected lineup with Marte, Peralta, Jones, Escobar, Lamb. Those are pretty decent power bats. Yeah. Of course, 4 of them are left-handed, and San Francisco's a nightmare for that. But it's just to say that if a ton of ownership is going to Beatty, there's certainly some merit to getting on the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, this is another time to point out that ownership is not necessarily a barometer of talent, and people getting a lot of ownership, like Tyler Beatty at 50%, is not indicative of like the expectation of the game so much as it's an explanation of the slate and their pricing, and the chances of the Diamondbacks beating Tyler Beatty are, I would imagine, a lot better than 50% Tyler Beatty. So I really like the idea of getting to some Arizona here in what could honestly be the worst possible park to do it in.
Right.
And you mentioned the same bats that I would mention: Marte, Peralta, Jones, Escobar, Lamb. That 2 through 6 spot in the order is just overpriced but perfect, I guess. A good pairing for probably the Walker Buehler plus Alex Young kind of lineup, since Arizona's kind of expensive.
Yeah. One other thing to point out with Beatty, too, is not only has he just been lit up by lefties this year, a 430 WOBA and a 296 ISO, but he's only struck out 16.9% of lefties compared to 26.6% of righties. So far, he's just been another one of these righties, kind of like Jack Flaherty, but like a worse version, obviously, but like where he's just good against righties. Brad Peacock, another example, good against righties and then just absolute trash against lefties so far.
Do you see yourself getting to any Giants here? This seems like a spot where you're just kind of like, meh.
The only thing that makes me think I could get to some Giants, outside of the fact that there are 8 offenses, is that they do have a couple of what I think are the best point per dollar plays certainly not appealing guys in terms of ceiling. But Donovan Solano leading off and Buster Posey batting fourth are both really good point per dollar options. Tyler Alston actually has some power, so I would say he's probably my favorite tournament bat from the lineup. But I certainly can see getting into some Giants as a filler because of the value. But at the same time, and it's something that I know Alex points out a lot, the fact that these guys are so cheap and they project as the best point per dollar plays means there's a really good chance that the Giants come in higher owned than they should.
Yep. They get naturally pulled in from optimizers for the most part. Donovan Solano, steamer projection for ISO, 0.090.
Right.
Ooh. Put that in San Francisco. That's a recipe for, I don't know, a lot of balls beaten into the dirt, probably. Tyler Austin, $7 outfield option on Yahoo, I think is pretty appealing as far as things can be appealing here. What'd you say?
I think Tyler Austin's the best player from the Giants.
I don't disagree. It's hard to. Dual eligibility too. 2,600 on FanDuel. Yeah, I would agree that it's Tyler Austin. Do you have anything else in this game? No, go ahead.
Donovan Solano is like tonight's version of Tommy Edman from, I guess it was yesterday.
Yeah.
But like he was leading off at 2,300, so he was like 15% owned on a 9-game slate or whatever it was, even though he has a 120 steamer projected ISO. It's just, again, the difference, especially in baseball, the difference between median projections and ranges of outcomes and actually getting what you want from a player.
Yep. We try to touch on it as much as we can, but we'll keep saying it over and over. Favorite bat in this entire game? Still Tyler Austin?
Either Austin or Peralta. Probably Peralta.
Yeah. It's a really hard question to answer because you're obviously picking Peralta because he's functionally good at baseball.
Right.
Whereas Tyler Austin is less so. All right, we're closing it out. Game 4. Angels and A's, 5.2 run implied total, 4.3 for the A's. It's a 60% chance to win for LA. Griffin Canning going for the Angels. Tanner Anderson going for Oakland. Canning 14% ownership on Yahoo, 18 on FanDuel, 30 on DK. For context, on Yahoo, Griffin Canning is the same price as Steven Strasburg. On FanDuel, Griffin Canning is just straight up cheap, $700 cheaper than Alcantara. On DraftKings, Griffin Canning is $400 cheaper than Walker Buehler. I like Griffin Canning, generally speaking. His price on Yahoo is crazy because you're clearly never taking him, or you clearly don't want to take him over Strasburg. And on DraftKings, it makes it really difficult to not want to take Walker Buehler for $400 more.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to get, or the most likely way I get the Canning on DraftKings is Canning plus Buehler.
That makes sense. Right now, Strasburg, 30% ownership. Buehler, 30% ownership. Canning, 30% ownership. So
yeah,
that I don't know. I don't know how that happens unless it's a lot of Buehler Canning, with Strasburg getting looped into the big ownership for Alex Young and Tyler Beede. But man, It really surprises me to see Griffin Canning getting that much ownership. So talk to me. How do you feel about him?
It's a mediocre spot, I think, but that's really the case for just about everyone on the slate other than Strasburg. Oakland has about a 21% strikeout percentage against righties this year. That's in the bottom third of the league. They're a league average offense in terms of production, 98 WRC plus, I believe 314 WOBA. They do have a lot of right-handed power. Canning, like I'd said earlier, has a 25% strikeout percentage this year. The walk percentage is really good. His xFIP is elevated, but his PCRA is right in line with his ERA. So I'm inclined to think that he's been fine. The one thing that stands out, so in addition to his strikeout percentage against lefties being higher than against righties, I don't really expect that to continue because he has a very healthy 28% swinging strike percentage on his slider to righties, which he's thrown 46% of the time. So I think that you start to see the strikeouts climb up against righties as well. But he has had some issues with right-handed power in particular, 232 ISO, 207 expected ISO. His slider has been basically unhittable, but his fastball has just been getting absolutely destroyed by right-handed hitters. So my guess, and I didn't dig into it, my assumption would be that when he's getting behind in the count because he throws his slider so much that, if he falls behind, he's in fastball counts and his fastball is just getting destroyed. But Oakland clearly has a ton of right-handed power that can take advantage if he is getting behind in counts. So I think that playing both sides here makes some sense. Canning is a good pitcher, but Oakland has the power to take advantage of his mistakes as well.
Do you anticipate any Tanner Anderson? I almost called him Tyler Anderson.
I was actually just trying to pull up and see what his projected ownership was on DraftKings because I mean I hate the spot. Obviously. What?
1%?
If he continues to be 1% owned, I will be over the field on Tanner Anderson.
I have him projected worse than Peter Lambert.
I actually have him similar, so maybe. But I would think that I get some if he's 1% owned, just because he's not a strikeout pitcher, but he was not going to get strikeouts in this matchup anyway. He's a really, really good ground ball pitcher. Like obviously, I'd rather take Angels bats than Tanner Anderson, but when you need a pitcher in that price range, and you have Tyler Beede with 50% ownership, who's not good. Alex Young with 50 or 30% ownership, who's not anything special, and then this guy at 1% ownership. It's not crazy to be over on Tanner Anderson.
No, I mean getting to like 5 to 8% of Tanner Anderson doesn't seem terribly crazy. I'm going to set the line right now. Over under Tanner Anderson strikeouts 2.5.
It's a pretty good line. I mean, I would take the over, but like 3.
Yeah, I have it projected for 2.3. So, whew, that's. Are you better off taking a reliever?
I thought about that earlier. I just don't know what reliever to go to. Like, there's no obvious one, I don't think.
I'd have to look into it. Just because of Tanner Anderson's price, 6,700, like you can probably find a better pitcher somewhere.
Yeah, I wish he was cheaper.
There are going to be pitchers on this slate. We obviously don't know it now that will score better than Tanner Anderson, or that can score better than Tanner Anderson. So
yeah. Let's see. Now I was going to say, so Derek Holland pitched yesterday and on Monday. The Rockies, not that I would really want to go to any of their pitching anyway, but no. Chad Bettis looks like he's available.
That's reasonable. I mean, ultimately, I think there's enough solid pitching on the slate that you don't really have to do that. But just comparing Tanner Anderson to like a different reliever, I'd probably take the field of relievers. Okay, so then let's talk about bats here. A's right now essentially tied with the Angels for second in ownership. These are the second and third most popular teams on DK. Do you have a preference in team? I assume it's the Angels. And do you like the other team at all?
Yeah, I mean, my preference in team would be the Angels just because Anderson is not as good as Canning. But I prefer the price tags on the Athletics because, like, if I'm paying up, especially in the outfield, a lot of the time it's going to be for the Dodgers, especially since I expect, like I said, their full stacks to be lower owned than they should. I don't really want to be losing a lot of that to the Angels here. So the price tags and the power for Oakland are pretty appealing. I think that there's a good chance I end up with more Oakland exposure than Angels exposure. Yeah,
the prices for Semien, Chapman, Olsen, 41, 43, 41 on DK, mid threes on FanDuel, but those prices on DraftKings, to get a first baseman, a third baseman, and a shortstop at those sorts of prices, I mean, that makes it really easy to stack up some other teams and to get quality pitching.
Right.
It's very surprising to me. And then you just get a sea of outfielders to pick from, with Chris Davis being what should be probably the first pick at only 3,800. Right. Angels bats. Let's see. I'm sure you like Mike Trout. Ohtani is a favored option here. Justin Upton has power. Anybody else I'm missing?
No, I think you nailed him. Looks like Andrelton Simmons could be back in the lineup today.
I do have him in right now.
Probably means that we're not getting that lineup until like lock.
Yeah. Well, you'll have some time to late swap there with no other options at 10 o'clock. So
yeah.
Although there's hour and a half gap between Marlins, Nats, and the Rockies start. So favorite bat in this game that isn't... it doesn't even matter. You're going to answer Ohtani.
I was going to say Davis.
Really?
He's 3,800 on DraftKings.
Cool. I'm glad you said Davis. As soon as I started saying it, I was like, oh shit, it's just going to be Ohtani. I already know this one.
Next.
Yeah. I think that's probably it for these games. So let's just sum it up. Top stacks.
it sounds obvious, but Dodgers and then more Dodgers, and then fit in some more Dodgers after that, and then probably go to the Rockies.
Okay. I want to loop back to one thing that we didn't touch on. I've given most of the ownership throughout the show, but I want to put the FanDuel ownership in perspective. I want to get your thoughts on it. Strasburg right now, 24. Griffin Canning, 18. Tyler Beede, 26. That is the chalk number on FanDuel. He is 6,600. Alex Young, 5,500, 17%. Walker Buehler, 8. Are the cheap guys getting too much love here?
That's hard to say without like having put lineups together and knowing like what hitters you're getting. I do think Tyler Beede in particular is getting too much love because he's nowhere near the pitcher that Griffin Canning is, and Canning's not that much more expensive. And then on the other side, if you're just prioritizing bats, Alex Young and Tyler Beede are like the exact same play.
Yeah.
And he's $1,100 less expensive with lower ownership. So I don't know that the cheap guys are getting too much ownership in the aggregate, but I think that Tyler Beede in particular is getting too much ownership.
That I completely agree with that assessment. That is a really, really good way to look at it. I was mostly coming at this from a perspective of how in the hell can Walker Buehler be 9,600 and only 8% owned on a 4-game slate? That seems like the biggest error out of everything there, but I'm with you. Alex Young and Tyler Beede are too comparable for Beede to be the chalk when Canning is not that far away from him. $900 on FanDuel is not a particularly large amount of money.
Right.
I think that's probably it. I don't have anything else for the slate. Anything that's caught your eye? Anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to get in?
No, I think we dug into pretty much everything.
Perfect. Okay, so once again, Jake and Chris will be up probably in the 6 to 6:10 range. Tricky slate with just the 4-gamer. So tune into those guys. Link is already out there. I'll drop that link into chat right now. If you want to pregame the Live Before Lock stream, feel free to hop in whenever you see fit. Link is in now. You can join up. Hop into chat early. You guys can bounce your theories off of one another until everybody gets in there. Shout out to Yahoo once again for being the presenting sponsor of this show. One last link dropping into chat. This is to Emacs Spotlight Hitters and Stacks article. If you want to, nope, that's still the YouTube link. Never copied the Yahoo link. Yeah, go to YouTube again. I'm spamming links into chat. Go check out Emacs article. Sign up at Yahoo. Use the promo code AWESEMO, and you can get $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points. It's enough for 10 individual entrants into the $3 no management fee contest. 10 separate times you get to get in without having to pay a single cent back to Yahoo. You cannot beat that. You'll never find a deal that's going to be better than that unless they're paying you back rake, which never happens. Shouldn't say rake, but sorry. Deeper Dive is the promo code. One big word. 50% off your first month with us. Any monthly package you choose, including packages with Fantasy Cruncher. Tomorrow morning is Friday, so you and I will be back taking on either a 14-gamer or a 15-gamer. I haven't looked to see where the Cubs are playing. And then we'll have the full-on Friday slate. Yahoo Strategy Show tomorrow at 1 o'clock. No Boss Man. He's at FSGA, so it'll just be me and Jake. No Awesemo Odds betting show. It's kind of a light time for sports betting, but we'll be ramping that back up shortly as we get closer and closer to the NFL season. Deeper Dive is going to be myself and Adam again. Laffy will be doing a Sirius radio show from FSGA. Awesemo Radio. I want to be very clear there. That is our show. Go check that out. And then Live Before Lock again tomorrow. Jake and Chris taking you all the way up to 7 o'clock. That's it. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Adam, one last thought or no more thoughts?
No more thoughts. Done thinking.
Perfect. We're out of here, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Good luck tonight. Peace.